So this is another how-to video on this red bridge for the Peabody Merrimack Valley. As you guys know, in the O-gauge world, a lot of times you have to either have custom bridges made where you end up spending a lot of money, or you have to make your own bridge. So I wasn't sure how to make this bridge. I wanted to make it as real as possible. I know you can go to YouTube for a lot of ideas, so I thought I would make this video to show you guys how I made this bridge, and hopefully will give you some inspiration on another way to make a railroad bridge. So let's get started. Before I get started, I just wanted to give you guys a shout out. It's kind of exciting for me. My channel has just reached 250 subscribers. I know that's not a whole lot, but I think that's a little benchmark for my channel. So I wanted to thank all you guys for subscribing to my channel. I enjoy making these videos. I think the model train world is meant to be shared, so that's why I'm making these videos, and I enjoy making them. And I also appreciate all your comments and feedback. I enjoy engaging with you guys in the comments section. So keep the comments coming. Without further ado, let's get going. The way that I did this was I made marks on the fast track. First of all, the curvature of this bridge is 096. As you know, I'm using Lionel Fast Track, so it's an 096 curved bridge. So I made marks on the track to mark out what the approximate length of the bridge would be. And then I took the track and placed it on a sheet of plywood and traced it out with a pen. And then I left about 3/4 of an inch on each side for the width of the bridge. And I used a jigsaw to cut the plywood to make the base of the bridge. Then I had to come up with some idea. This is kind of a large bridge, and Scenic Express makes these girder plates here, and they're flexible. And I don't know if you've seen my video that I made a while back on my other bridge, how I weathered it. I use these girder plates from Scenic Express. They're flexible. If you haven't seen that video, click on the link in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You can see how I weathered that bridge. But I used that girder as basically an inspiration. So I traced out the width of the girder plate to get the height of the girders. I traced it out on Masonite, the same material that I used for the backdrop. And as you know, Masonite is flexible, and that's why I used that, because the bridge has curvature to it, and it has to be flexible. So I traced it out, I cut it, and to fit the length of the bridge. So what I did was, on the base, I cut a slot in between the girder and the sides of the bridge. And I cut slots in between the attachment points. You can see the attachment points here where I attach the girders, but there's actually a slot that you can see through. And I wanted to do that to add a little bit, just a little bit of uniqueness to the bridge. I then went to Home Depot and bought they have these square wood rods that you can get, and I cut them into 2-inch pieces. And then I took each piece and beveled one corner so that the attachment pieces were perfectly square, to kind of add, again, a little bit of uniqueness. Here's a close-up of the lighting's not very good, but there we go, there's the better lighting. Here's a close-up of the beveled the square rod that I made to attach the balsa wood, the not the balsa wood, to attach the Masonite to the side of the bridge. And I attached those square 2-inch pieces. I screwed 2 screws from underneath, and I had to make sure that the screws were not too long, that they wouldn't protrude through the top part of the square rod. Then I took the Masonite and I marked the holes where I would be screwing the Masonite to those square rods on the side, those 2-inch square rods. So I made the marks, I drilled the holes, and then I used a countersink tool to make sure that the screw heads would be below the surface of the Masonite, so that when I painted the bridge you wouldn't actually see the screws. I used joint compound to cover over the screw heads. And then what I did was I applied the joint compound, like I said, to the top of the screw head. And then I made vertical lines 1 inch apart, because that's what the Scenic Express girder, the vertical lines here, that's what the Scenic Express girder plate, that's how they're spaced. So I made marks as guides to know where to put the balsa wood strips. You can see in the picture there's the lines, and you can see the joint compound going over one of the screws so that you don't actually see the screws. I bought some balsa wood strips at a local train store, and what I did was I measured the height of the Masonite so that they would be exactly the same height. The balsa wood strips would be exactly the same height as the height of the Masonite. I used the chopper, it's called the Chopper 2, to cut the balsa wood strips. So here's a closer view of the Chopper 2. This is a great tool. I think I bought it on Amazon, and it uses, basically, there's a razor blade right here, and it's very sharp, and you just basically push it down and it'll cut balsa wood, it'll cut styrene. And once I got the length correct for the balsa wood strip, what I did was I placed the piece in here, and then this stopper right here, I screwed it down with this nut. And so that what that enabled me to do is I didn't have to measure every single piece of balsa wood. I just slid the balsa wood underneath here and cut the piece. So I was able to cut the balsa wood strips very quickly. You just basically slide the balsa wood in, press it against the corner here, and you cut it with the blade. And then you slide it down, you cut. Slide and cut. So this tool really saved a lot of time. If you're going to be working with balsa wood or styrene strips, I highly suggest using this. It's a great tool. Then what I did was I used this glue right here. Again, I got this at my local train store. It's called Zap-A-Gap, and it's a really strong modeling cement. And I used these tweezers to hold the balsa wood strip, and I would glue one side of the balsa wood strip and glued the balsa right on the lines that I had made that were 1 inch apart. Then what I did was I went and bought some styrene strips, and they're these right here. And they're a great product. And what I did was I used the Chopper 2 to cut the styrene strips, and since they're the same length as the balsa wood, I was able to just cut them quickly like I did with the balsa wood on the Chopper 2. As you can see in this picture, you can see the balsa wood attached to the side of the bridge without the styrene strips glued yet. So I took these styrene strips, and before I cut them in the chopper, I took this tool, and I never knew about this, and again, I learned this from YouTube, This is a little rivet tool called, it's from Plastruct, the company Plastruct. They make a lot of styrene and plastic pieces for modeling. And I don't know if you can see it here, but it's basically got a bunch of teeth on it. And what you do is you press down on the styrene strip, and what it does is it makes indentations on one side and it makes protrusions on the other side to simulate rivets. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make rivets that showed up on the side of the bridge where the styrene strips are, to kind of add more realism. So I would make the rivets with this tool, and then I would take the styrene strip and I would cut it to the same length as the balsa wood. And then I used this glue here, again, to glue the styrene to the either side of the balsa wood. And this is what it looked like after I attached both the balsa wood and the styrene strips. At one point, I ran out of the balsa wood strips, so what I had to do was I bought a small sheet of balsa wood, and I used a thing called a balsa wood stripper, and that's this right here. And really, all it is it's a razor blade that you basically press on the the side of the balsa wood. You press the base on the side of the balsa wood, and you press down and slide it, and it creates a slit in the balsa wood, and then you break it off, and then this knob right here sets the width that you want, how wide you want to cut the balsa wood into strips. You turn this knob right here. So what I did was I took the styrene strips that I had before and adjusted the blade so it was the same width as the styrene strips, and then I used that to cut more styrene strips from the balsa wood sheet. And and that was another great tool that really worked well. One thing you have to be sure of is make sure that this blade is in tightly, because as you're pushing and sliding it and it's cutting the balsa wood, the blade can move, and you want to make sure it's secure while you're cutting it. So the next step in building the bridge was I had to make the horizontal balsa wood strip on top. And this is actually the strip that I used. This is the width of it. And what I did was I measured the width of from the back of the Masonite to where the vertical balsa wood strip came out. I measured the width and bought on Amazon a bunch of these balsa wood strips, the same for that width. Then the part that was what made me kind of nervous was that the bridge is curved, and I had to make the horizontal part, this balsa wood, curve to fit the curvature of the bridge. So one thing I learned I wanted to give a shout out to Nick L. from New Jersey. I subscribe to his channel. He's got a good channel. He's got some good how-to videos. I'll leave a link in the description below. I suggest you guys check it out. But I learned from him in one of his videos. He made a bridge kind of like this. His bridge looks a little bit different, but he had to bend the balsa wood, which I didn't do. But he had to bend it here, and what he said was you have to wet the balsa wood to make it more flexible, because balsa wood will bend to a certain extent. But I had to bend the balsa wood sideways for the curvature. So what I did was I took the strip of balsa wood and stuck it in a big pail of water and let it just sit in the water to give it some more flexibility. After that, I took the balsa wood and clamped it to the top of the bridge and let it sit there for like 24 hours or more, so that it would hold in that position. And you can see in this picture here that I have the balsa wood clamped to the bridge. And then after that 24 or more hour period, I unclamped the balsa wood and used this glue right here. And it's like a gel, a wood adhesive, instant bond, and it's a really strong gel. I got it at a hardware store, and I just glued it down to the top of the bridge, and then I took clamps and clamped them down for like a half an hour until the glue would set. It says instant bond, but I wanted to be safe, and then I took the clamps off, and that was it for the building of the bridge. And then really the last thing I did was I painted the sides red, and I had to make 2 coats to really get it really needed 2 coats to get the correct color. So I used 2 coats on the inside and the outside. I painted the base of the bridge black, as you can see from the earlier video. I just painted the top of the base of the bridge black. So before I conclude, I just wanted to give you guys a close-up view of the bridge so you can get a better look at the detail of it. And hopefully from these shots you'll be able to see the rivets. The corner. That's pretty much it on how I made this bridge. It didn't come out perfect. The clamps ended up making some indentations to the vertical piece. I don't know if you can see from over here. This is kind of sagging down, and that's from the clamp. I had to really clamp it down hard, and maybe I clamped it down too hard, and it made an indentation in the balsa wood. And so the vertical strip is not perfect, but I'm pretty happy with it. The trickiest part was getting that horizontal piece to curve to bend to the curvature of the bridge, and I had to use a lot of clamps. But I'm pretty happy with it. And so if feel free to leave any comments. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you. But that's about it for here. Oh, one more thing. I forgot to mention these. These are the bridge supports here. And again, I just kind of came up with that on my own. I basically took some round dowels, rods that I again bought at Home Depot, and here's some more square rods that I bought at Home Depot, and cut them to the appropriate length, and I just screwed in to make it look like concrete pillars to support the bridge. What I'm going to do is I ended up painting these bridge supports like 3 or 4 times because I didn't get the right color. I picked a very light gray because I didn't want the bridge supports to be a really dark gray, but what ended up happening was it almost looked like they were white. And so I ended up taking one of the paints that I bought and I threw a little black in there and made it a little darker gray. So I'm pretty happy with the color. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to weather the bridge supports with a little bit of rust color. I'm going to maybe do some dry brushing and add a little rust to those bridge supports so they don't look so perfect looking. Make it a little bit more weathered. So that's about it from here, and we will catch you guys on the next video. Take care.